The Tale of Benjamin Bunny. One morning a little rabbit sat on a bank.
Ah, what a beautiful day. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, and I hear the trip-trot of a pony.
A gig was coming along the road. It was driven by Mr. McGregor, and beside him sat Mrs. McGregor in her best bonnet.
I do say, the McGregors are going out for the day. I think I'll visit my cousins.
As soon as they had passed, little Benjamin Bunny slid down into the road and set off, with a hop, skip and a jump, to call upon his relations who lived in the wood at the back of Mr. McGregor's garden. That wood was full of rabbit holes, and in the neatest, sandiest hole of all lived Benjamin's aunt and his cousins Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail and Peter. Old Mrs. Rabbit was a widow. She earned her living by knitting rabbit wool mittens and muffetees. I once bought a pair at a bazaar. She also sold herbs and rosemary tea and rabbit tobacco, which is what we call lavender.
Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, can you arrange those mittens and tea for me while I do some knitting?
Can we please help knit?
Yes, but now don't get tangled into the wool.
Knitting, knitting, 8, 9, 10. 8, 9, 10. I knit socks for gentlemen. Gentlemen, gentlemen. I love muffin and I love tea. I love tea. I love tea. Knitting, knitting, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
I don't think I want to see my aunt today. I think I'll see what in the back of the fir tree.
Peter was sitting by himself. He looked poorly and was dressed in a red cotton pocket handkerchief.
I say, Peter, what's the matter? Peter, who has got your clothes? The scarecrow in Mr. McGregor's garden. Mr. McGregor ran after me with a rake, and I lost my jacket and shoes. I just saw Mr. McGregor today. He's going out in a gig with Mrs. McGregor for the whole day. Mrs. McGregor was wearing her best hat. Well, I hope it rains.
At this point, old Mrs. Rabbit's voice was heard inside the rabbit hole, calling, "Cottontail! Cottontail! Fetch some more chamomile!"
I think I might feel better if we go for a walk. Come on, let's go.
They went away, hand in hand, and got upon the flat top of the wall at the bottom of the wood. From here they looked down into Mr. McGregor's garden. Peter's coat and shoes were plainly to be seen upon the scarecrow, topped with an old tam-o'-shanter of Mr. McGregor's.
Why don't we sneak into the garden and get back your clothes from that scarecrow? All right, there must be a gate somewhere to squeeze under. It spoils people's clothes to squeeze under a gate. The proper way to get in it is to climb down a pear tree.
Peter fell down head first. It was of no consequence, as the bed below was newly raked and quite soft. It had been sown with lettuces. They left a great many odd little footmarks all over the bed, especially little Benjamin, who was wearing clogs.
The first thing to be done is to get back your clothes. You might need a handkerchief later on.
They took them off the scarecrow. There had been rain during the night, there was water in the shoes, and the coat was somewhat shrunk. Benjamin tried on the tam-o'-shanter, but it was too big for him.
Now what do? We can collect onions as we carry a present for my aunt. We can use the handkerchief to carry the onions. I seem to be enjoying myself. I keep hearing noises. I want to go home. On the contrary, I feel perfectly at home. I am in the habit of coming into the garden with my father to get lettuce for Sunday's dinner.
The name of little Benjamin's papa was old Mr. Benjamin Bunny. The lettuces certainly were very fine. Peter did not eat anything. He said he should like to go home. Presently he dropped half the onions.
Now then, it's impossible to get back up the pear tree with a load of vegetables. Let's try to find a gate. I think there's one near the greenhouse.
he led the way boldly towards the other end of the garden. They went on along a little walk on planks under a sunny red brick wall. The mice sat on their doorsteps cracking cherry stones. They winked at Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin Bunny. Presently Peter let the pocket handkerchief go again. They got amongst flower pots and frames and tubs. Peter heard noises worse than ever. His eyes were as big as lollipops. He was a step or two in front of his cousin when he suddenly stopped. What those little rabbits saw when they looked round that corner was a large tabby cat with a red collar lying right across the path.
What should we do? Let's hide under the basket.
The cat got up and stretched herself and came and sniffed at the basket. Perhaps she liked the smell of onions. Anyway, she sat down upon the top of the basket. She sat there for 5 hours. I cannot draw you a picture of Peter and Benjamin underneath the basket because it was quite dark and because the smell of onions was fearful. It made Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin cry. The sun got round behind the wood and it was quite late in the afternoon, but still the cat sat upon the basket.
Now where is Benjamin?
Uncle! Father!
There you are. I've been looking all over for you, Benjamin. Peter, your mother is quite worried about you.
Please help us. We're trapped by a cat.
Don't worry, boys. I have no opinion whatever of cats.
When old Mr. Bunny had driven the cat into the greenhouse, he locked the door.
There now. Benjamin first, and then Peter.
Ow! Ow!
When Mr. McGregor returned about half an hour later, he observed several things which perplexed him. It looked as though some person had been walking all over the garden in a pair of clogs, only the footmarks were too ridiculously little. Also, he could not understand how the cat could have managed to shut herself up inside the greenhouse, locking the door upon the outside. When Peter got home, his mother forgave him because she was so glad to see that he had found his shoes and coat. Cottontail and Peter folded up the pocket handkerchief, and old Mrs. Rabbit strung up the onions and hung them from the kitchen ceiling with the bunches of herbs and the rabbit tobacco.